There are 7 continents on our planet. A continent is a large section of land that is separated from other areas of land. Most of the time, they are separated by water. The 7 continents are North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. The country we are studying today is China, and it is found on the Asian continent. Even though China has been closed off to the world for most of its existence, it has existed as a distinct nation and people for more than 2,000 years. And just think about it. Our country is barely more than 200 years old. For hundreds of years, and still today, almost everything about China seems to enchant the world. Its land is diverse, the traditions are ancient, and today it stands as a fascinating mix of ancient and modern cultures. For most of its history, China was not one country or kingdom, but many. In fact, the Chinese name for China is Zhongguo, which literally means Middle Kingdom. In a time when China was a small area surrounded by many other kingdoms, it was literally in the middle of all the other kingdoms. Eventually, the armies of the Middle Kingdom defeated surrounding areas, and they were all united under a single leader. The leader of China until recent years was an emperor. This emperor belonged to a family that ruled China for as long as that family kept having kids or until they were defeated by an army trying to win control of the country. The time during which a family ruled China was called a dynasty, and history was kept and organized by these dynasties. For example, the Ming Dynasty was one of the most prosperous dynasties for ancient China. The place where a royal family lived was a giant palace called the Forbidden City. It was called forbidden because no one could enter without the emperor's permission. Life under the rule of an emperor was both cherished and hated, and eventually the imperial rule ended as the last emperor of China was forced to take his place as a regular citizen under the newly formed People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China was led by the Communist Party of China under the leadership of Chairman Mao Zedong. They had defeated a group that wanted a more democratic nation in a bloody civil war. That group fled to Taiwan, where it remains in power today. Years later, in 1966, Chairman Mao launched what was called the Great Leap Forward. It was an attempt to modernize China through a cultural revolution, where anything that was associated with old China was considered treason, and anyone associated with that tradition was killed. It did not last for too long, but it resulted in the death of 45 million Chinese citizens and the destruction of untold amounts of Chinese history. Today, China allows some modern and/or Western thought into its economy, but it keeps very tight control over what students learn in school, or what media reports, or what people can view over the internet. However, in spite of its rocky past and present, China is emerging as a major world power. China has the most people of any nation on earth. It has over 1.3 billion people. It has so many people that in 1978, the government became concerned with its ability to support everyone. So it came up with an idea called the one-child policy, a policy that would restrict most families in cities to having only one child. The people of China come from many different ethnic backgrounds, and they all speak different languages. But one of the fascinating aspects of China is that all these different languages use the same written characters. The Chinese language does not use letters and words like we do. They use characters that are based on ancient drawings, so the words often resemble what they are. Look at the name for China, Zhongguo. Notice how the character for middle has a line through the middle, and that the character for kingdom, Guo, looks like a city with a wall around it. Part of the unification of China, however, was to get everyone to speak the same language. So they chose a language to teach everyone. The language that was chosen was called Mandarin. Many children grow up learning two languages, their native language and Mandarin. If you choose to learn Chinese here in America, you are probably going to learn to speak Mandarin. Food in China is a very big deal. It is said that there are 3 things that must be part of every Chinese meal. It must smell good, it must taste good, and it must look good. And this applies to the finest restaurants on down to the most rural home. Is it any wonder why Chinese restaurants are so popular? However, most authentic Chinese food is hotter than we usually find here, and it possibly might involve a few more insects. One particular food that is common to almost any meal is the dumpling. Some people might call it a pot sticker too, but in Chinese it's called the jiaozi. It is dough filled with some sort of meat and cabbage, and then it's fried, sometimes boiled. Making your jiaozi look good is a talent worth developing if you're going to invite guests over to your house. While most people in China dress in clothing that is similar to any other region in the world, it is still very common to see modern clothing styles influenced by traditional styles. The current Chinese government enforces state atheism, that is, the absence of religion or belief that there is no God. Consequently, it is not known what religious beliefs actually exist among the people. However, ancient China was deeply involved in Buddhism and still has some Buddhist temples today. In 2008, the World Olympics were held in Beijing, China, one of the larger cities in China. And China won more gold medals than any other country. So you might imagine that just about any sport you can think of is practiced in China. However, if you go to a park, it would not be out of the ordinary to see older people practicing Tai Chi, an ancient martial art that focuses on controlled movements. If you go to a school, you would see children doing Kung Fu as part of their physical education. On certain holidays, you would probably find a dragon boat race. And lion dances are part of just about every celebration in China. Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world, and it is part of China. But China also has blistering hot deserts, green bamboo forests, fertile lands along rivers, and beaches in the east. Most of the people live in the eastern part of China. The western part is mostly desert. It is colder in the north and warmer in the south, just like most places that you are familiar with. The Great Wall of China is one of the wonders of the world and one of the most visited places in China by tourists and Chinese alike. It is said that one must ascend the Great Wall of China to become, quote, a real man. But I'm sure that anyone will feel a sense of accomplishment and wonder when they go there. The Great Wall of China was originally built in pieces before it became continuous, and its purpose was to keep out invaders from the north. In spite of intense modernization in China and the great gains it has made in the world market, it remains closely tied to its past, and this tie to a past that is so ancient is what makes it such a place of wonder to the rest of the world.